Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, um, Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. Sorry for the late start tonight, guys. We had one last little glitch we had to take care of today. uh, Funny thing was is that yesterday we had replaced one box, and then we had to replace another box, and then and everything was working until this morning when it started to rain. Then we got shut down for this time more quite a bit. Was of course eventually revealed that it was a bad wire that we needed to replace. So hopefully, so we got a couple of new boxes. We got a couple, and we got a new wire. Hopefully now everything is finally fixed and won't have any more issues now. Knock on wood, as they say. But anyways, so with that being said, friendly reminder, of course, to everybody, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. That goes for both my Rumble and my YouTube viewers. Um, So we're of course going to give people a chance to come in before we get started on the go over what we're going to be covering tonight. We do have some stuff. Um, but but anyways, hopefully everybody's so we're in the of course the latter half of the week here. Um, Kind of a shortened week because for many, of course, this past Monday were the observance of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, and we have Jefferson airship or Jefferson Starship Trooper. Let's see. I wish every once in a while, um, or I visit every once in a while. I'm almost always your only viewer. Sometimes you are, and sometimes you aren't. Lately, some of my other friends like Metal and Metal has come in a bit. Shows been in and out a bit too. I think tonight it might be a little shy just because of the fact, as I said, not on at my normal time. I actually got a late start tonight. So, but anyways, we do have somebody in here now. So, and it's past the 3 minute mark. So I guess I'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. So we are going to go over one article tonight from Bounding into Comics. There apparently now anime studio Mappa has gotten into a partnership with Netflix for global distribution services. So we're going to be looking at that. Also, of course, we'll have the wrestling wrap up in which we'll be looking at. Of course, we'll be getting all caught up on, of course, last night's AEW Collision or AEW Dynamite. Some news coming out of the Dynamite Collision situations. Collision was originally going to be live this Saturday, but they had to tape it due to weather. We'll talk a little bit more about that, of course. And of course, look ahead to tonight's TNA Impact and Ring of Honor Club. And we do have to report on a passing of a territory star from the territory days. We'll talk a bit. Bobby Duncombe Jr. passed away. We'll talk a little bit about him. For those who don't know who Bobby Duncombe, this is Bobby Duncombe Sr., the father of Bobby. Many of you probably remember Bobby Duncombe Jr. from WCW. His father, of course, was also a pro wrestler back in the 70s and early 80s. we'll talk about him as he passed on, and then we'll, of course, we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment, but I will put some music on while I'm gone. And I'll be right back. Alright, anyways, now with all that being said, let's go ahead and get into the first article of the evening here. And of course, we are now at almost 6.5 minutes. So let's take a look at this. So, Netflix and anime studio Mappa's new partnership raised horrifying odds for a live-action Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, mind you, I can from everything I've been hearing, of course, people are not always keen on some of these live-action adaptations of recent years. The article by Spencer McCauley published yesterday. So let's take a look at this and see what's going on here. All right, so in service of helping expand the global anime audience, Netflix has announced a, quote, strategic partnership, unquote, with famed anime studio Mappa, the exact terms of which open the door for the pair to intricately collaborate. And while nothing is even rumored to be in the works, this development raises a terrifying possibility regarding a potential live-action Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen. Now, again, there's been a lot of criticism over the live-action adaptations of many popular animes, as they, many of them, with maybe one or two exceptions, many of them have not, let's say, hit as well as would be hoped. Formally announced on January 21st, yesterday, this collaboration will see the two media entities, quote, working together on new projects with a global perspective. Oh boy! Fans are not going to be happy about that. We talked a lot about that. Whenever you allow the West, some of these, got people in the West to have a say in what Japan creates, it usually turns sour real quick. Because as one of the commentators I've been watching of late noted, when you allow the West to dictate what Japanese creators can create, that usually takes the whole thing that makes the creation special to begin with. So, Monte Sensei, I believe, is the guy's name that said that. So, anyways, from story development to merchandise, unquote, with Netflix set to, quote, exclusively stream a slate of original Mappa-produced anime titles to members worldwide, unquote. Quote, anime is central to our members, unquote, viewing experience, unquote, said Netflix. Quote, today, more than half of Netflix members enjoy anime on the service. Anime viewership has tripled over the past 5 years. With this partnership, Mappa's new anime titles will premiere exclusively and simultaneously worldwide on Netflix, allowing fans everywhere to experience these stories together, unquote. Hmm. Offering his own comment on the deal, MAPPA president and CEO Manabu Otsuka um, explained, quote, "We have worked with Netflix on various projects in the past, but this expanded partnership is based on MAPPA's core belief in being an independent studio, both creatively and in business," unquote. The problem is, I think the problem that many people would argue, however, is when you start getting in bed with people, with companies in the West, like Netflix, like even Amazon or Prime or what have you, when you and HBO, when you start getting in bed with Western companies, you actually start to lose your independence, because what they'll do is they'll start to, well, if you want us to show your stuff, you have to start making the material like this. They'll start dictating to you what you can create. And we've already heard from a number of Japanese creators that that's just not going to fly. I know you guys probably were here when I was covering Evangelion's director and his comments that recently came out. And we've talked in the past about like Ken Akamatsu's comments as well in regards to that whole idea. Um, And again, another friendly reminder, just to remind everybody, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream so we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will try to, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, anyways, with all that being said, let's continue on here. Quote, Japanese animation studios must proactively lead every stage from understanding global audience needs and developing projects. I don't know if that is entirely true. I think people like Mane Sensei and and Hirohei and a number of people have argued that no, you don't need to cater to. In fact, I think that was one of the big points that Ano from Hideaki Ano from Neon Genesis Evangelion fame pointed out. You don't need to cater to the global audience. Okay, cater to your own core audience of people in Japan, because the international fans who like anime, they like it because it's different, because it's reflective of Japanese culture, right? We've talked about this before. It's like you really get the feeling like even for those like myself who watch dubs, right? You still get that feeling of like, sometimes, particularly when I watch some more slice of life type um anime. I love the fact that it's got that Japanese feel. I mean, if I could, I mean, if I had the means to, I'd could, granted it'd be a lot harder because of the language barrier and all that, but I would even consider moving to Japan, you know, if I had the means to, you know, because it's a beautiful country with a beautiful people. You know, they should not allow the West to bully them when it comes to their creativity. And it's nice to see people like Hideaki Anno and Ken Akamatsu, as well as a few others, come out and just point out that yeah, we're going to just keep creating for our core audience. Okay, continuing on here, to reaching viewers and expanding related businesses. MAPPA is committed to deepening our collaboration with Netflix, aiming for a long-term win-win partnership. Yeah, just be careful. What I would say to the MAPPA president here, Mr. Let's see, who is he? Mr. Otska. My advice to you is just make sure you're not selling your soul to the devil here. Make sure that you can still maintain your independence and not be beholden to somebody who may not truly have your true best interest at heart. Just be mindful that you're not selling your soul to the devil to make a few more bucks. Likewise, Netflix Japan's VP of content, Kara Sakamoto, asserted, quote, "MAPPA is a remarkable studio that has continuously taken on bold challenges and achieved unprecedented forms of expression," unquote. Quote, "At Netflix, we also value the passion and dedication of creators by combining MAPPA's unique approach to anime production with Netflix's global reach and the courage to take risk, which is essential to creating compelling content." Now that I can agree with. That aspect I can agree. Yeah, take risk, but make sure that they're the risk you're wanting to take and not kind of risk being forced upon you. We hope to further expand the possibilities of anime. We are fully committed to delivering new works and excitement to fans around the world, unquote. See if anybody is commenting. No. All right, so perhaps most notably is the fact that, as mentioned in the conclusion to the deal's official press release, quote, "Under the expanded partnership, multiple new anime projects are now in planning and production," unquote. While nothing has been officially confirmed, and thus it's unknown whether said quote-unquote project are animated or live action, this specific partnership does lower the barriers of entry towards the studio's current hits, Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen, receiving Netflix adaptations all their own. Admittingly, MAPPA does not own either Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen, with the rights to both currently and firmly held by their shared publisher, Shueisha. So Shueisha could come in and say, no. If they try to do a live action adaptation, they could come in and say, no. Yeah, no, we've seen what you've done with live action. We're not letting you use our material to wipe your rear ends. However, in light of the breakout success of both series anime adaptations, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Shueisha would be more than willing to license each IP for a live-action outing. Should MAPPA either express an interest in making one or be assigned by Netflix to helm any such project. Ultimately, whether Netflix's Chainsaw Man or Jujutsu Kaisen is on the live-action menu remains firmly in the world of speculation, especially after seeing how wantonly Shueisha allowed Western studios to play with Dragon Ball, Death Note, and even Saint Seiya. Okay. Yeah, anyways. All right, so there we go with that article. Let's see, where are we at on time here? Let's see, 20 minutes. As I said, we're going to, since we do have a little bit more to talk about than usual, I think I will just jump right into the wrestling wrap up, because the first thing we do need to talk about here in that regard is the late great, the late Bobby Duncombe, who just passed away here. Let me pull that. Let me find that material. Bobby Duncombe, of course, whose son Bobby Duncombe Jr. passed away back in the year 2000. Let's see. Let me go ahead and bring that up here. We'll read a little bit about. So, of course, Bobby Duncombe passed away here at the age of 81. So, for those of you who don't know who Bobby Duncombe is, or Bobby Duncombe Jr., or Bobby Duncombe Sr. is, anyways, he has a little bit. So, Bobby Edward Duncombe, August 14th, 1944 to January 2026, was an American professional wrestler and football player. He is best known for his appearances for the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and National Wrestling Alliance and the American Wrestling Association from the late 1960s to the late 1980s. He was father of professional wrestler Bobby Duncombe Jr. So, he, of course, did play some football. He basically played 4 games for the Arizona Cardinals back in 1968. He was drafted in the 13th round, 331st overall pick. But in terms of Bobby Duncombe's professional wrestling career, let's take a look at. So his wrestling persona was that of a heel cowboy, basically a bad guy, a bad guy cowboy, basically. And he wrestled some of the top babyface stars of the era, such as Bob Backlund, Bruno Sammartino in the WWF, basically in the 70s there. In the AWA, along with Nick Bockwinkel, Ray Stevens, and Blackjack Lanza, he was a member of the famous wrestling stable managed by Bobby Heenan, known as Heenan. So he was part of the AWA's version of the Heenan family. Of course, we would see that later in the 80s in the WWF as well. In fact, he and Blackjack Lanza actually, I think it was in 1976, had actually won the AWA World Tag Team Championship, I recall. So we'll talk a little. Well, I'll go over some of his accomplishments here in a moment. His famous catchphrase during interviews and written phonetically was you understand? You understand? You understand? His final match was held on November 18th, 1986 in Clarksburg, West Virginia, teaming with Lord Zoltan to defeat Troy Orndorff. And I don't believe Troy Orndorff was. Oh, let me see. Let me just double check that. Oh no, yeah. Troy Orndorff was actually Shane Douglas. So yeah, not related to Paul Orndorff, but and Kurt Kaufman. Duncombe died in this month at the age of 81. Again, among some of his credentials included, of course, being a former AWA World Tag Team champion with Blackjack Lanza in 1976. He, of course, held the NWA Florida Tag Team Championships 3 times with 3 different partners. He was a 2-time Florida version of Brass Knuckles champion in Florida. Let's see. He also held the Brass Knuckles Championship 1 time in Mid-Atlantic. And in Amarillo as well. He was a 2-time Western States Tag Team Championship, 1 time with Woody Farmer, another time with Dick Murdoch. Of course, Bobby Duncombe was from the West Texas area. Let's see, born in Austin, Texas, so was also was an alumni of West Texas A&M University. Of course, he's part of that same crew that gave us former world champions and Hall of Famers, Dusty Rhodes, the Funk Brothers, Terry and Dory Funk Jr. Also, of course, Blackjack Mulligan, as we just mentioned, Blackjack Lanza. That crew of individuals as part of the same kind of group that came up around the same Dick Murdoch, as we just mentioned as well. So what we're going to do now, for a quick moment here, we're going to do a moment of silence to honor the late, great Bobby Duncombe, to kind of acknowledge his passing. And our condolences here at the Mikestand go out to his friends, family, and fans. So now let's go ahead and we will go ahead and do the moment of silence. All right. So with that being said, now, actually, I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. I will be right back, but I will put some music on while I'm gone. When we get back, we'll move on to the next story. Actually, I'm sorry. We'll move on with the rest of the wrap up. Let's get out. What went down on AEW Dynamite last night, and look ahead to the night back as well. Be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, now getting on to so now as we continue with the wrestling wrap up here, now that we've talked a little bit about Bobby Duncan's passing, let's go ahead and take a look back at last night's Dynamite, as well as take a look ahead to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. So on last night's Dynamite, coming from the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando, Florida, with, of course, Excalibur, Taz, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. The show opened up with Samoa Joe defeating Speedball Mike Bailey in 15 minutes 18 seconds, getting some revenge on him, as of course, as I previously reported from last Saturday's Collision. Hangman Adam Page and Jet Speed had defeated the Ops, become the new World Trios champions. Joe, of course, had Hook and Katsuyori Shibata in his corner. In a six-man tag match, it pitted the Death Riders, Continental Champion Jon Moxley, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta against the Don Callis family members of Lance Archer, Hechicero, and Rocky Romero. The Death Riders defeated the Don Callis trio in 15 minutes 33 seconds. In a non-title match, AEW World Tag Team Champions, FTR, with Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler with Stokely on commentary, defeated the newly signed AEW team of Jordan Oliver and Alec Price. In a match that's been kind of years in the making, that's been like 6 years in the making, Kenny Omega defeated Josh Alexander in a one-on-one contest in just under 12 minutes. In a women's tag team match, the Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford defeated the Timeless Love Bombs of Nina Shirakawa and Toni Storm. The main event saw Swerve Strickland defeat the Jet Kevin Knight. Now, it was announced that initially Collision was supposed to be live this Saturday, but due to the storm that came, the winter storm that came in here in the Southwest area in Texas and stuff like that, they actually ended up taping a show from the Edition Financial Arena last night. So coming up this Saturday, this will all be done this Saturday. You'll have Katsuyori Shibata taking on Hangman Adam Page in a one-on-one match. In a non-title match, AEW Women's World Champion Chris Statlander is set to take on Isla Dawn. Jordan Oliver and Alec Price will be taking on the Don Callis family team of Mark Davis and Jake Doyle. Jake Doyle, of course, the recent signee to All Elite Wrestling from TNA. Father and son will team up as Billy and Austin Gunn will team up to take on Don Callis family's Proto Shida, Konosuke Takeshita, and Kyle Fletcher. Willow Nightingale is set to defend the AEW TBS title against Julia Hart. Andrade El Idolo will take on Magnus in a match of luchadors. And the main event for this Saturday's Collision will see Claudio Castagnoli of the Death Riders defending the CMLL World Heavyweight title against Roderick Strong of Roderick Strong. Of course, Claudio will have Wheeler Yuta in his corner, while Roderick Strong will have Orange Cassidy in his corner. A lot of history between three of these four men, of course, Claudio, Wheeler, and Orange. So that's all we got for AEW side of things. So now go ahead and take a look at what's going down. Well, first I will take a look at what's going down on tonight's Ring of Honor Club tonight, coming from the Esports Stadium, Arlington, in Arlington, Texas, with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on commentary. In six-man tag action, Dalton Castle and the Outrunners of Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum will be taking on a mystery opponents. Satman Singh will also be taking on a mystery opponent in a singles match. Johnny TV with Ty Valkyrie in his corner will be taking on Ace Austin. Tommy Billington and Adam Priest will be taking on the team of premier athletes of Arya Davari and Tony Nese, with Mark Sterling and Story Donali in their corner. In women's tag team action, the MITs of Diamante and Billy Starks will be taking on London Dior and Rachel Ellering. Rachel Ellering is, of course, the daughter of WWE Hall of Famer Paul Ellering. Jordan Oliver and Alex Price are really getting exposed here after signing with AEW, as they will also be on this Ring of Honor show with the Crew. They'll be taking on the Crew of Action Andretti and Leo Rush. Big Bill and Brian Keith will be in tag action, taking on KM and Will Allday. And the main event we'll see in a pure title proving ground match. Lee Moriarty will try to fend off the challenge of Matt Menard, as Matt Menard looks to earn a shot at the Ring of Honor title. If he can either win the match or last the 10 minutes in the match, then he will earn a shot at the pure title. Now, let's take a look at what's going to be going down on tonight's TNA, Thursday Night Impact on TNA here. So tonight's Thursday Night Impact, coming from the Tingley Coliseum in Albuquerque, New Mexico, on AMC. Match is already signed for tonight. Of course, Indy Hartwell will be set for action against M by Elegance of the Elegance brand, with, of course, Heather by Elegance in the personal concierge in her corner. There will be a Feast or Fired match in which, of course, the combatants will be given briefcases, and whoever wins the match will be able to open their briefcase. Feast or Fired, I believe, is a match where they set up where it's kind of similar to Money in the Bank. You either have a championship contract or a pink slip in the briefcase, but the combatants are chosen randomly, and the winner gets to open his briefcase. So, and then also signed for tonight's Impact will be in a singles match, one half of the TNA World Tag Team Champions, Jeff Hardy, is set to take on Mustafa Ali. And of course, tomorrow we'll talk more about what happened on tonight's Ring of Honor and TNA, as well as look ahead to tomorrow night's SmackDown. Probably talk a little bit more about this Saturday night's main event. Get y'all prepared for that as well, and kind of reiterate what's going down on Collision as well. Hello, let's see. Hi, Mike. Hey, Shayun. Thanks for popping in. Hopefully you're having a good evening, my friend. Anyways, again, friendly reminder, if you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, and I know, saying you just came late, you're probably wondering, well, why am I doing this late? Well, we've been having some issues with our connection. Hopefully, we finally got them fixed to where everything's now up and working again. So, but anyways, with that being said, let's start to wrap this up. What we're gonna do now is today is, as I said, Thursday, January 22nd, 2026. So let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. History! So 2014, 1996, 2021, and 2011. All right. So, first off, we're going to head back 30 years ago, as on this date 30 years ago today, back in 1996. The day after the Royal Rumble that particular year, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Stockton Civic Auditorium in Stockton, California. Of course, the lone live, back, of course, this was still in the early days of Raw, even though they'd been about 3 years in already, obviously. But they were still taping most of the shows over a series of weeks. But this happened to be a live show, because it was the day after that year's Royal Rumble. On the card, the main event saw Bret Hart defeat Goldust in a non-title match. Bret Hart at the time was the WWF World Champion, and Goldust was the IC champion. We also saw on the night Hunter Helmsley defeat Razor Ramon by a countout. Vader defeated Savio Vega in 3 minutes to open up the show. Other segments from that show included featured an ongoing segment running down the results previous nights for Rumble and the announcement that Razor Ramon would face Hunter Helmsley. Yeah, okay, so just the announcement of the matches, along with a special interview from Shawn Michaels. They also had the Billionaire Ted's Wrestling War Room parodies of basically the idea of McMahon at the time. Hogan and Macho Man had, of course, Hogan and Savage had left WWE for WCW, and that was kind of their way of kind of knocking WCW. Also did have an interview with Shawn Michaels that was conducted by Vince McMahon, which Jim Cornette interrupted. And the only way that basically Cornette, who was managing Owen Hart at the time, basically stated that the only way he would get in the ring with Michaels if Michaels put his WrestleMania title shot on the line. And then Shawn, of course, kept it, and then threw Cornette over the top rope. So I believe Shawn Michaels had won the Royal Rumble that year. And your commentators for that evening, of course, were Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler. So 30 years ago today, that's what happened on Monday Night Raw. It was the night after Royal Rumble, with stuff going down. So anyways, getting ready now to move on to the next piece of Nietzsche history. As we move ahead to the year 2011, which was, of course, 15 years ago today. In the year 2011, the 5th movie in the Broken Blade movie series premiered on this date 15 years ago, from produced by Production IG and Zebek. So the fifth Broken Blade 5, the 5th in the Broken Blade film series, premiered on this premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2011, 15 years ago. Oh, wait, what am I doing? Didn't need to do that. Anyways, moving on to. Actually, maybe I did. Okay, never mind. Moving on to the year 2014, which happened to be 12 years ago. I'm sorry, 12 years ago in the year 2014. First issue of All New Invaders from Marvel Comics went on sale on this date back in 2014, 11 years ago today, or 12 years ago today, sorry. It sold for $3.99. It's 32 pages. Story was Gods and Soldiers, as written by James Robinson, with art by Steve Pugh, lettering done by Corey Pettit, and Wes Hartman did the coloring. The first issue of All New Invaders went on sale on this date 12 years ago, back in 2014. Finally, we move up to the year 2021. On this date in the year 2021, so I bring that up, 5 years ago today. Released on Disney Plus, the animated series Pixar Popcorn premiered on Disney Plus on this date back in 2021. So 5 years ago today, Disney's Pixar Popcorn premiered on Disney Plus on this date back in 2021. So with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. So we're back here with more Nietzsche News tomorrow. We'll also get caught up with all the with what happened on tonight's Impact and get caught up on what happened on tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor. Look ahead to tomorrow night's SmackDown, as well as this Saturday's Collision. We'll go go over again the, of course, Collision card, and also look over the Saturday night's main event card coming from Montreal. And then this Sunday, of course, I'll be joined by Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be looking back comics that went on sale in July of 1940. We're looking at comics that went on quality. I just haven't, because of some of the stuff going on with the maintenance issues, all that, haven't actually been able to get around yet to, figuring out which stories we'll read for Sunday. We will be reading from material that went on sale in July 1940 from Quality Comics. So, with that being said, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.